Hey marketers, this is the Girls in Marketing podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We are so excited to get started with the episodes. Just before we do, we want to give you a little introduction to who we are and what we do. Girls in Marketing is an e-learning platform and online community. We are on a mission to bridge the digital skills gap and equalise gender seniority in marketing. Right, that's enough chat. Let's get into the episode. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to make a quick mention of Monday.com's annual online conference, The Elevate Show, which is happening on the 3rd of November. The day will be packed with expert talks about how to become super efficient and improve your workflow, as well as lots of product masterclasses, practical customer stories, insights from the Monday.com leadership team, and much more. It's completely free to sign up and attend both virtually and on demand. You can register for free. Just click the link in the show notes of this episode. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Girls in Marketing podcast. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Lidia Infante. She is a senior SEO manager at Sanity.io. She's also a speaker for the likes of Brighton SEO, MozCon, and as well as an author. She's also verified on Twitter, which is, I think that is a whoop, to be honest. But yeah, I met Lidia originally at a Connective 3 event in Manchester, and from just the experience of chatting with you, I just wanted to invite you onto the podcast and chat everything. I feel like we really smashed the patriarchy during that event, which is quite cool. So I wanted to chat all things marketing, SEO, and just women in marketing, supporting women. And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to chat to you about today. So just diving straight into the episodes, I want to talk to you about this whole thing of men, and they're like twice as likely to become director, 4 times as likely to become CEO. Let's unpack that a little bit. How does that make you feel, number one?
First, it makes me feel somewhat angry, somewhat frustrated. I am a big fan of female rage, but that's an entire one for a different podcast episode. But there is a thing, when we talk about the inequality in these positions of power, there's always a counter argument that comes in saying, I don't want necessarily an equal distribution of the top positions in a company. I want the best person for the job to be hired. And this is an argument against quotas. That is explicit quotas, right? If we're making a gender quota, it becomes an explicit quota. I believe we are working with a secret, invisible quota where, due to different reasons, and we can touch upon a few of those, men are given these positions or are taking those positions of power when they're not necessarily the best people for the job. So if you do think you want the best people in the job, not the best, like not because of their gender or their ethnicity or their background or whatever, you probably want to start enforcing explicit quotas to get rid of the invisible quota that gives white men all of the power, regardless of whether they deserve it or not.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I did psychology at university.
Me too.
Amazing.
That's crazy.
And it's like unconscious bias. It's like a big thing. And that's kind of what I'm feeling with you saying, that sort of thing. Because I think unconscious bias comes from the idea that we don't realise even what we're doing. And I think that's kind of what's happened with a lot of companies, is that they've kind of started these almost like this structure within a company, for example, and they don't even realise that it's happened. And now it's kind of like, how do we teach people, businesses in particular, to like stop it and like reverse that action? But people don't even realise they've done it in the first place. So that, I think, is a massive issue, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And there's some people who defend that they are immune to unconscious bias somehow. First, acknowledging your vulnerability to unconscious bias is a good way to prevent you being affected by unconscious bias. So actually, the more you say that you're not affected by unconscious bias, the more you are likely. I do not remember the scientific references, but you can look it up. And it's also reminding me of this there's this manual that we studied in developmental psychology. I think it's the Schaffer and Kipp. And one of the episodes was on like gender development and like biases. And there was a study on like pregnant women that would evaluate the intensity of the kicks of their babies as harder if they thought that the babies were going to be male versus female.
Yeah.
There's been studies talking about parents evaluating their daughter's success in math differently versus their children. And often the success or the intelligence of women is attributed to their effort rather than intrinsic to their being, right?
Yeah.
So that manual, and I know it very well because I failed the first time around. So I had to do it twice. It was my first time ever failing at something. So it's like really, really deep in my soul. Yeah. So parents would say, my child is successful in math because my boy is successful in math because he's so smart. My girl is successful in math because she puts so much effort in.
Yeah.
So this is like science. It is proven.
Yeah.
We're all affected by it.
Yeah.
The best way to step away from that unconscious bias is to acknowledge it and look out for it in our own behaviors.
Yeah. That reminds me, I don't know if you remember a while ago, it was like a supermarket brand released t-shirts, and it was something about like princesses are like beautiful, and then like it was something like princes are like smart or something. Obviously that is related a lot to marketing actually, because the kind of marketing around the t-shirts and stuff, but it reminds me of that because it's like the kind of idea that we have, the stereotypes that we've associated with certain genders, like it's crazy, like, and I think it really does lean in a lot to marketing, like as a discipline, because as well, if you think about like the way we market products, and like that comes back to that kind of unconscious bias, or like the stereotypes of certain genders, for example, how we market certain products. If you take the likes of, I just thought of this on the spot, but I think it's quite a good one to talk about, like the Yorkie Not For Girls campaign. I don't know if you've ever seen it before.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So
what is a Yorkie?
So there's this chocolate bar. It was years ago, and they had this marketing campaign, and it was literally just a chocolate bar, but they marketed it as not for girls. So it was like, which I literally...
Excuse me.
Yeah. I know you all hate that, but that was a massive like scandal now. It wasn't really at the time because people were just like, oh, it's funny, like whatever. But actually now it's like, that is awful, but it's still happening a lot in marketing.
Yeah.
And I think that does come back down to kind of stereotypes, and also like that aspect of women generally not being equal to men in all walks of life, professionalism, marketing, and all stuff like that. I just wanted to talk about the gender pay gap because we did some research into, obviously being girls in marketing, we talk a lot about women in the industry and stuff. So we found that the Office for National Statistics said that there is a pay gap of around like 9%, I think it's 8.9, but in marketing it's like 28%, which is crazy. And then actually in the non-for-profit sector, specifically for women, it's also again like 49% or something ridiculous like that. Why do you think it's important now to kind of talk about that? There's a lot of people who say, oh, the gender pay gap doesn't exist, or oh, it does, but blah, blah, blah. There's always like these kind of things people talk about. And also, how do you think that we can kind of support women in the industry to empower them to like speak up about what they're doing and what they're being paid and stuff like that?
Yes. So there's a lot in there. There are several arguments to say that the pay gap does not exist, or that it's circumstantial because men are better at their jobs. Not really. Or because they choose more high-paying careers. That's not quite right. As we've seen, the stuff that we reward and encourage in girls and boys growing up is really different, and it shapes their choices, right? We don't make choices in a vacuum. And if women are being rewarded whenever they take some caretaking actions, they're more likely to do more of that and eventually develop that into their careers. While if men are being rewarded when they compete against each other, they're going to develop that side of their personalities or their likes and eventually make it into their careers. There's also historically, like there's been some industries that have been typically female dominated, that when the money has been present, men have flooded to it, like computer science, right? Really, really early stages of the technology industry were very female dominated. But also, what was I going to say here? And another aspect that affects the pay gap. So first, let's settle that one. Yeah. The pay gap exists. It is. Yeah. It is
point blank.
Also science. Also Google it. Yeah. Now, why? Where does it happen? Right. There are also some studies where recruiters in STEM were presented with the resumes of a Jane and a John, everything the same except for their names. Jane was regarded as having less experience. Jane got a lower salary offer. Jane was less likely to get the job, while John was a lot more likely to get a higher paying offer or a bigger title, more likely to get the job at all, right? That is the unconscious bias at play in STEM, right? Some people like to say, oh, I'm in science, therefore I am immune because my brain is so big. No, unconscious bias is for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's one. Another one is that women are actually encouraged to ask for less money. And that is because we're socialized to be more selfless. This has turned into like feminism and psychology. I've not brought this into like my professional podcasting for such a long time. Right. So we are encouraged to be like caretaking and doing things because of generosity, selflessness, out of the goodness of our hearts. So we tend to feel really guilty when we're asking for a higher pay, when we're asking to be compensated for our roles and responsibilities. Also, we tend to take on the work in the office that needs doing, but doesn't promote it's not non-promotable work. Like it's not gonna get you a pay rise.
Yeah.
Such as doing the shopping for the office, organizing social events, taking notes during meetings is much more likely that it's going to fall onto a woman, either because we take it as out of the goodness of our hearts, or because we're being asked.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot more likely that the office manager, the unofficial office manager in small companies, is going to be a woman, organizing breakfast and making the lunch orders and all of that stuff. And yeah, we're also less confident when it comes to asking for more money, asking for salary raises, asking for higher pay coming into a job, negotiating our salary, negotiating our job title. It feels like ick. Ugh. You know, like I don't want to do that. I'm gonna sound like I don't really want the job. I'm gonna sound like I'm doing this for the money. But I'm doing this for the money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I think I've spoken to a lot of people within our community and, marketers in general. And I think there are so many women in the industry that just think they can't negotiate or they can't ask for a salary increase or anything like that because they're scared that it will offend someone or, and I'm sure there'll be people listening now that are thinking the same. And I think that the issue comes because we're not kind of supported enough to make those decisions. Obviously, what's happened in the past has happened. So, everything exists and we now need to fix that. And I think I think it's the responsibility of kind of the actual companies themselves and what we were talking about, unconscious bias and stuff. But equally, I think also women just need to support each other and feel more empowered to make good decisions because honestly, the amount of people that tear down other women, like women tearing down other women, it makes me angry, when you see it. We were talking earlier about Twitter. I feel like Twitter is a breeding ground for people who just want to hate on other people. And people do it a lot in a professional sense. And I think it comes from jealousy. And then it's kind of goes into this whole thing of women, you know, not supporting other women and that sort of thing. And I know it's a massive topic.
Yeah.
And it really does bother me as a person, to be honest. But I think that definitely comes in to us as kind of people, as women, that we tend to ask for a lot less of things. And it's kind of related, but not fully related, but something that I think would be interesting to talk about.
Wait.
Go on.
On salary.
Yeah.
I have a thing that I do
Go on.
with my best friend.
Yeah.
Okay. So if nothing, she has the audacity. Okay. My best friend's American. She's been a businesswoman, owned her own business for a long time. And we've been writing each other's salary negotiating emails for the last few jobs. So yeah, when I first negotiated, first time ever that I negotiated my salary, I was like, Megan, they're offering me this much, but honestly, it's not enough. It's not enough for me to move over to the UK and like leave my entire life here. I really like the company, but are they going to be mad if I ask for 4K more? And she's like, no, you're moving country for them.
Yeah.
So I was just terrified. I would not have sent that email, but she went, grabbed my laptop, typed the email. I added some touches that made it a little more me, a little more non-threatening.
Yeah.
Right? And she was like, she pressed send on my laptop, right? I could have unsent it because I have that set up on Gmail for the anxiety.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I got the raise within 2 minutes. Within 2 minutes of pressing send, they're like, yeah, that's fine. There is space for you to negotiate. So advocate for yourself as if you're advocating for friends. More science. Actually, women are a lot better at advocating for others than they are for advocating for themselves.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to negotiate your salary, then you're negotiating your best friend's salary.
Yeah.
Recently, my friend got a ridiculous 6-figure offer, and I was like, oh, wow, good on you. And she's like, yeah, but I want more. And I'm like, okay, good on you.
Yeah.
So she went from freelancing to a full-time job somewhere that I really like. I realized that I said her name earlier and now her salary. Okay, sorry about that. She's like, oh, maybe if instead of hiring, I stay a contractor, they'll like raise my salary a little bit. I'm like, no, just ask for the salary that you wanted. She's like, well, what if they take back my offer? I'm like, you told me to ask for the money. So have the audacity.
Yeah.
Think of if the figure doesn't make you blush, you're not asking for enough.
Yeah. And as well, the likelihood of someone taking back an offer just because you say, can I have, 2, 4, 5K more is very unlikely. The most likely thing that's going to happen is either they come back and they say, yeah, that's fine. Or they just come back and say, that's not within our budget. We'll just give you that. And that's the offer. And then you just kind of have to take it or leave it type thing. I think it's rare for a company to kind of just say, put our foot down, we're not giving you an offer at all now. But maybe that's something.
No, there's a lot of resources spent into the offer. They've spent hours of their team. They've evaluated your CV. I don't know, have you done a task or whatever? Like, they're not going to take back the offer.
No.
Unless there's a 1% chance.
Yeah, obviously there's a chance there, but I wouldn't say that it's very likely. And, it's probably likely that they'll just come back and say, yeah. It's fine.
Yeah, and it's all about how you go about it, right? If you act entitled to the money, you're probably going to come across as not someone that they would enjoy working with, which is not about the money.
Yeah.
It's about how you communicate it. I think the best way to go about it is thank you so much. That is amazing. I'm so excited. I would love to join your team. When it comes to the offer, I was wondering if there's a little bit of flexibility. You can either go for, I'm wondering if there's a little bit of flexibility and try to see how higher up they are going to go. Or you can ask for a desired number and see if they'll match it. You can go a little higher than your desired number and maybe they'll meet you there or maybe they'll meet you a little lower.
Yeah.
Right? But negotiate with the company. Don't negotiate with yourself.
Yeah. That's empowering. Love that. But you really do speak with so much passion, even when we were at the Connective 3 event and now, where do you think that passion comes from, originally?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I think I'm very driven by quality, right? I want to do my best and I demand so much of myself. It's insane. When I see that others are not necessarily matching that or meeting me where I am, or I see like an unfairness, something that I perceive as unfair, really bothers me.
Yeah.
So when I notice that there's this unfairness going on, it's like 51% of the population, I think we are right now. Well, that's not cool. That's not okay. That pisses me off, right? And I'm very quick to anger. I forget about it really fast, but I've got a bit of a intensely.
Yeah,
bit
it's
of
a
passion.
fire. It's good.
Yeah, it's a fire.
It's fierce. It's not a negative thing. Yeah.
So whatever I care about, I care a lot.
Yeah.
And I care a lot about saying that 50% of the population are being discriminated against. I care a lot about women having money, having means, having a fulfilling career, a confidence, the audacity that gets them to all these places where all these men are having all this fun.
Yeah.
Right? And if example of this is during Women's Day, there was an ad on Twitter, a promoted hashtag from a pension company saying, oh, the pension gap is this much, kind of going into women should put more money in their pensions. But the pension gap is due to all of the unpaid care labor that women have historically been doing that have taken them away from more successful careers or higher paying jobs. They're also due to the pay gap, right? And when you look into the pay gap that company had between women and men, it was over 25% or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, take a look at that, maybe, if you're worried about the pension gap.
Yeah.
That really pissed me off. I made a tweet about it. You can probably find it if you search passionately enough. But yeah, it's unfairness. It's just very uncool with me.
Yeah. No, that's nice. I think having a fire is something that a lot of people have, but also don't want to kind of show, if you will, because people are scared a lot. I think when I kind of first started Girls in Marketing, I felt really passionate, obviously, around the industry and around women and the industry. But I was quite like nervous to kind of talk about it. And like, I don't know if that was just because I didn't feel like I should, or possibly if it was kind of more of a, I'm not really qualified to do that. That's another thing, possibly down to being a woman as well, and me thinking that.
It is. There's also science about it.
Yeah. And I think over time, I just decided that actually I was just going to do it and just not give a shit, to be honest. Like, genuinely, it come to the point where I was just like, I've just got to speak about these things because there are other people doing it, don't get me wrong, but like nobody else is going to kind of voice what I'm thinking or what's going on. And obviously we built this massive, amazing community with Girls Marketing, and we had so many people coming to us with things to say and, you know, situations and stuff like that. So I was just like, I've just got to be the voice for these people.
Yes. And I think you've done an amazing job. And I think you've taken a huge risk because clearly you've been a pioneer in talking about inequality in marketing. And that must have been really scary. So I think it's like a really, really brave move because nobody has done it before. But part of the reason that I can go and speak about inequality in marketing is people like you have like been brave enough to speak about it first.
Yeah.
And it is scary because it can like genuinely impact your career if someone decides, oh, she's problematic.
Yeah.
She's gonna be too much of a feminist. We don't want her. Like, if you get labeled like that, it can actually honestly impact your career, right? Impact your income, impact your prospects. Doing that and daring to take that risk for justice, I love it.
Yeah, it's worth the risk.
I really admire it. I'm a big fan.
I think I spoke about this on a snack episode of our podcast a few podcasts ago. And I was very much faceless with Girls Marketing for quite some time, literally because of the fear of being judged and, you know, all these other things. And then over time, I've become a face, obviously, I exist. But I think people enjoy that because they're like, this is, you know, the person, the founder of Girls in Marketing and everything like that. But I think for me, the facelessness come from not really wanting it to be about me, because it's not about me. Girls in Marketing, it isn't. I meet people all the time who don't know who I am, because it's not the point. Like, I'm not here to be like, I'm Olivia from Girls in Marketing. My point is, I've got this mission with this organisation and this is what I want to do. But I respect that having a face is important as well for branding and organisation stuff. But yeah, I just think it's like really kind of nice to chat to someone who has similar views and is open about speaking about them, because a lot of people aren't. And I get told a lot of the time that people have opinions of certain things, but they don't want to say it because they're too scared to, or they're afraid of XYZ, you know, all these different things, which is totally understandable, but people like us have to do it for them.
Yeah.
So I want to dig a little bit deeper about your career, because you are a senior SEO manager, which is really cool. Well done.
Thank you.
And I want you to tell everyone a little bit more about what that kind of role entails, and yeah, what kind of your day-to-day looks like.
Okay. So it looks really different depending on where you are. I've been a senior for a year and a half, I think, a bit more maybe. I became a senior lead at an agency. So the agency life is, well, it involved a lot of public speaking, because I was managing my own department and I was trying to bring business into that department. And public speaking is a really good way to get business when you're agency side. And that involved, lots of meetings with American companies, trying to explain why we weren't ranking or why we were making this amazing creative proposal for PR, trying to coach some of my team into improving client communications, right? So it was a bit of a helper role. And my next role, because I've had a bit of a busy year. I've changed jobs a couple of times. My next role, I was a senior international manager at BigCommerce. And the role there was a lot of analyzing data and requesting work, right? Okay. So I would audit a site, find some gaps, request the work, build processes, and empower other people in the team to actually be able to pick that up and implement it in their teams, or be able to get like a motion of content publishing going, some educational meetings on how to do keyword research internationally, even if you don't speak the language, some coaching of junior team members. I actually had a lot of fun coaching some junior team members at that role, because there was this guy who just had the craziest ideas and was always down to do anything, try anything. I'd give him like a task and he'd have it in 2 hours, and he didn't know how to do it. Yeah. He just went and figured it out, right? Yeah. There's someone else who was very focused on perfection on the technical side of things, but she focused a little bit too much on what tools were saying. So I was working with her on how to understand the meaning behind the tools, like why would a tool come up with this warning, and do you care or not, and how to communicate to development better. So yeah, in that case, I think a lot of my work was empowerment and enablement, right? Identifying the bottlenecks within the systems and communicating it, solving it, easing it, building processes. I know it sounds really vague, but my day has been different every day for a really long time. Right now at Sanity, my days involve a lot of learning, right? Because I'm working with it's not a headless CMS, I don't think. It's a structured content platform that can be used as a headless CMS. So I need to learn a lot about how headless CMSs operate. Our headless CMS is in the Jamstack, which is the opposite of another stack that I have forgotten. Sorry. So it involves a lot of learning, some writing, some communicating with other departments, reviewing content, setting out what our content briefs are going to look like when they incorporate SEO, and building and sending out content briefs to different writers. But that is because our need at the moment is very focused on content. I'm also we are onboarding an agency for digital PR. So we're working on that as well, and communicating the value of what we're doing across our demand generation department, the DevRel department, our tech department, our web department, and this is a very startup-y environment. So it does come with a lot of, hey, content, what are you up to? I'm up to this. Yeah. Let's communicate and collaborate. And it is hard. Like building real collaboration is difficult. So I feel like my role is more of a serving what the company needs rather than performing a specific set of tasks.
Yeah.
It comes with identifying what the company needs as well and being able to communicate it. So yeah, a leadership role like this is kind of weird, to be honest, because it's not like a typical role when you have a set of responsibilities that someone else has assigned for you.
Yeah.
You have to be your own starter and motivator.
Yeah, that is the case with a lot of startups. So I think we spoke about it in our office the other day, actually, because we're a startup as well. There's literally 4 of us. And each of us is like our own department. So normally you would have, however many in a department, but we're just like one person, one department. And I think it is really difficult, don't get me wrong, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are like that. Marketers within our community in particular are often the only marketer and they have to do everything in marketing. Yeah. And sometimes people talk to us and they say, there's so much of marketing, but I don't have enough hours in the day to do everything I need to do. It's really interesting, and I definitely understand that being in our startup. But I wanted to just pick up on what you said about working at Big Commerce and kind of empowering a team. It's really nice to know that that's kind of what you led with, because I think people find it difficult leading teams. So leading with kind of support and empowerment is 100% like the way to go. How did you kind of find that experience of being a team leader, and was there anything that you kind of learned from doing so that maybe you would do differently or that you would keep the same?
So at Big Commerce, I wasn't actually their leader. I was just, you don't need to be formally someone's manager to be able to lead, right? So in my case, I knew that our manager was really busy with like very bureaucratic, high business conversations and process management and provider management. So I tried to look at the team with fresh eyes and see what they wanted and what they weren't getting, right? And if there's any way that within my day I could offer some support, because you can't just come in and say, hey, I'm going to assign you tasks now. Am I your manager? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, do you want to learn about this thing? Because I'll teach you. You have to build a relationship, listen out for hints that someone is unhappy in something or that they need support in something. Offer it kind of subtly until you build this relationship with trust where they can directly go like, hey, I want to learn how to do international link building. Do you want to talk me through it? And you go like, yeah, I'm going to talk you through it. Why don't you try out this project? Right? And you can start distributing it. It's obviously beneficial to me as well, right? Because if I had to do a tiny project to handle 404s in our Peruvian website, which we didn't have at the time, that takes some of my time. But if instead of dedicating that full time that I would to doing that process myself, I take someone else to do it, it might take me a little longer, but it's an investment in their job satisfaction, in their job development, and also in my job development, right? I exercise the muscle of leading, teaching, and I also have someone that does my 404 projects for me, right? But yeah, that particular experience was really, really rewarding.
Yeah, I can imagine that it is. I also think being kind of in that position is difficult, but it's amazing at the same time. That's always what people say.
Yeah.
And it's definitely been the case with me as well. I want to talk about a little bit about SEO, not too much, but I definitely do, because I am an SEO girl through and through. I love it. Organic search for the win. I did a podcast episode like quite a while ago, and it was about PPC, and before we started I was like, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm just gonna try. And she was like, it's okay, don't worry. And the podcast went well, and hopefully people enjoyed it, but I was also like, I have no idea about PPC. So I'm always excited about people who I get on who are SEO. But I want to discuss SEO and just kind of, your career obviously has been mainly SEO. I know you've kind of been a bit more of a generalist and then obviously went into SEO, but what made you kind of stick with the like SEO, the topic in general?
Yeah. So I was working in PPC at the time. I was working for an international clothes personalization e-commerce, and yeah, I was working there. I had the SEO team diagonally from me, and they were talking about SEO. And at the time I was in like a feminist group where we would discuss stuff and create content. We decided to create a website, and I was like, I'll build a website. Did I know how to build websites? I did not, but I had the audacity. Yeah. So I built a website on WordPress, and it did kind of okay. So yeah, I decided to build a website, and we started working on it together. We're putting out content. This was around 2015. So around 2015, social would give you a lot of traffic, right? Facebook was like, yeah, traffic for everybody. And then they got really stingy with it and said the video was the future. But we were just a group of girls. Video was not the future for us. No. It was still just writing, because it requires a lot less resources, obviously. And I realized that women were looking, it was, have I said it was a feminist magazine? I have said it, right? Women were looking for information, they were not finding it, right? They were landing on unreliable sources, especially in Spanish, because the Google algorithm is a little less sophisticated understanding natural language in languages other than English. This is canon, by the way. There's a tweet by John Mueller confirming this. And when I realized that I could put the information that these women were needing in this moment of high stress in front of them, that was really exciting to me. I felt like I was on a mission, right? It was super rewarding, because instead of landing on, oh yeah, your boyfriend can yell at you and that's not abuse, they land on, this is the pyramid of abuse. Where are you sitting in this thermometer pyramid thingy? Like, how are you feeling about these things? Have you, the next steps in gender violence are this? Maybe look out for those next steps and see if things are escalating in your relationship, right? Or providing, some people were Googling like what happens when you call 016, which is the phone number for gender violence in Spain. So I gathered some information on what you can expect, and I created a little page on like, hey, this is what happens. It stays anonymous. It's not going to show up on even your phone bill or your phone history. These are the resources you can expect from this team. They're not just gonna rescue you and take you away from your life immediately, right? They're gonna direct you to like a social worker or offer psychological support. And that was new, because there wasn't that information out there. It was sort of a mystical idea calling that number. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think getting in SEO at that time must have been really strange, because you've kind of grown with it. I want to talk a little bit about the fact that you've worked in-house and also agency side as well, because I get so many people in our community talking about, should I be in an agency? Should I be in-house? There's people who are agency side that want to be in-house. There's people that are in-house that want to be agency side. The big question, what do you prefer? And also, or could you choose? And also, like, what is it kind of to you? Because I think you've moved between the two. So yeah, what's your kind of thoughts on in-house versus agency?
So I don't think there's a best one, right?
Okay.
There's a best one for you. It does remind me a little bit of my dating life, you know, before I get engaged.
Yeah.
So there is some stuff that you want and there's some stuff that's good for you,
Yeah.
right? So I know that I am impatient, that I get bored easily, that I want to move fast. And that's something that you can easily do in agency because you can jump from project to project, explore many different industries and verticals and types of websites and CMSs and technologies and strategies. And it's like super exciting, but you don't own your results. That is somewhat comfortable for someone like me, right? Because I have mentioned this before. I am a raging supernova of anxiety, right? So if I am responsible for the results, that means that for me, my entire value as a person, my entire identity is put at stake. And it's going to depend on whether my article ranked or not, or whether my strategy turned out to be the strategy, right? When you're in agency, you don't really have to worry about it that much. And I'm not sure how openly we can say this, but you depend on what the client does. And the client could not fully implement your strategy. If you are providing the briefs, but not the copy, you can blame the copywriters. You can blame their developers. And nothing is ever really your fault. You're kind of in like, okay, like I don't own this. When you're in-house, it is yours. And you can claim your developers, but if your developers are not taking in your suggestions and your recommendations, either you don't have enough developers or you don't have buy-in within the company, which means you should have gotten buy-in within the company. There's a lot more responsibility, right? When you're having nice little hookups, there's so much variety, and this one works in finance, and this other one has a fashion brand, but when you're in a committed, stable relationship, you need to work a lot harder on communication, on getting buy-in for things, on actually owning this little baby of a website that you've got, right? So personally, I would say everybody should try both.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that there was a little bit of friction changing between both. When I was looking for my first job in the UK, I actually contacted Clockwork Talent. I don't know if you know her, but Natasha Woodford is like, you know her. She's amazing.
Yeah, I was on a thing with her. She's lovely.
Yes, she's amazing. So I was having this conversation with her and she's like, oh, well, some agencies might not hire you because you're coming from in-house. I'm like, what? And there's a bit of a friction. People who are good for in-house sometimes are not very good for agency, and the other way around, or at least there's a concept of that. The pace is really different. Yes, it's true, but I would say definitely to everybody, try both.
Yeah. No, I knew that because I think there's a lot of people who try agency and then they try and go in-house and then it's like totally different.
And they lose their minds.
Yeah, and they just like crazy, but then equally the other way around as well. And I think that, you obviously spoke about agency and it kind of being like really quick and fast paced and stuff. But I think in-house can be that if it's like startup vibes as well. Like maybe it depends on kind of the startup size, obviously. If it's a startup and it's got like 100 people, because that can still be classed as a startup, it might be a little bit different. But I think that it depends on your kind of like role as well in terms of what you're actually doing for that company, because agency roles and in-house roles can look very different. And like often what you're doing for an agency as, I don't know, let's just say like a marketing exec, and then you go over to in-house could be totally different. And I think a big kind of thing in that is like client face-to-face like meetings and stuff.
Yes.
Because if you go from in-house to agency, you probably won't have been excused. You won't have been like exposed to, client meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that is where a lot of the friction comes from, is kind of that aspect of things.
That is really interesting. I felt like when I joined the agency side, my first client meeting, I was like a little bit scared, a little bit intimidated. And then I got really good feedback from my manager. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is fine, this is doable. Then when I was recruiting for my team, that is something that we looked out for. I remember we hired this amazing, fantastic, show-stopping digital PR that I love, and now is one of the team leads at my previous agency. And she was coming from in-house, and we were looking at it like, how is she gonna do, right? So I was there for her first client meeting. I saw her smash it. I don't know, all of my experiences around that have been really positive. I also think that the agency that I was working with attracted a specific type of super extroverted, super confident person. But I don't think that friction is going to be that hard to take. You know?
No, I don't think that it is. I think it's more just a case of when you're a hiring manager at a certain company, you understand that people who've been agency maybe have more exposure to that kind of client side of things.
And there's stuff that you have to know, right? Like always give yourself buffer between your internal deadline and the client-facing deadline. Push back, or the relationship might deteriorate and they'll go with someone else because you're not, depends on your agency positioning as well, right? Are you there to get work done and like get stuff done for them? Or are you there to advise and help them level up? If you're there to help them level up, there's nothing that my clients loved hearing more than no. When I was like, no, I disagree. They'd be like, yes, tell me more. And I'm like, I disagree. They love it because they're there to hear your expertise, right? I had seen, now that we're speaking about it, another person in my team would take their clients at face value a lot, and anything they would say, she'd be like, oh yeah, we can make that happen. And I was like, not within our hours, we cannot, right? Not within budget, so push back. So yeah, I'd say pushing back and handling expectations are probably the biggest things that you kind of need to be very savvy and pick up when you move agency side. And patience when you move in-house. I am super impatient, so it's in-house is the biggest challenge for me, but that's what I need, you know?
No, definitely. And I agree. I think having the experience of both is really kind of nice for people to understand where they kind of ultimately want to be. Definitely. But it's been lovely having a chat with you today. I want to just finish and ask you what your favourite motivational mantra is. I know it's a hard one. I've had a lot of people recently saying, I don't have a motivational mantra. So I
have
don't know.
10.
Yeah, okay.
11, sorry. I actually have a blog post on my 11 life lessons working in marketing in the last 10 years. Because this month, I've actually been in marketing 10 years.
Crazy.
I feel so old. I have two favorites. One, I read somewhere, and it's timidity creates nothing. That's kind of like my life mantra. If something's scary, it's probably worth it. Or it's a dark alley in that case. And my other one, my work one, is effortlessness is a myth. This comes from Taylor Swift in her New York University acceptance speech of her, whatever, they gave her an award or a title or something. And I really connect with it because I've always tried to look effortless. I've always tried to be like, oh yeah, I'm just so smart. SEO just got into my head and now I can do data analysis and content strategy. Fuck no. I spend my entire day consuming content on Twitter. I've obsessed over everything that I want to know. I'm a super avid learner. And I really try for it not to show. And something that's actually quite like vulnerable to me is that English is not my English is not my first language, and I've been working so hard on erasing my accent, and I've ended up with like a weird where is this girl from kind of vibe. But it's really embarrassing to me when I struggle, when I miss a word, where I mispronounce something, or when when it doesn't look effortless, it's really embarrassing to me, and it shouldn't be because everybody's trying super hard all of the time.
And also my mantra for anyone listening, and also for you, is like nobody cares.
That's true.
So like genuinely, it might be a big deal to you, and you shouldn't devalue how you feel about it. But equally, like, nobody really cares.
What do you mean I shaved for this?
And I think that's kind of what I take away. And I love that kind of aspect, because I think for a long time, and myself and I know a lot of other people feel this way, you kind of try so hard to do things because you think that it's like needs to be done. And it's like, actually, it doesn't, like, it's fine. Everything's okay the way it is. But yeah, it's been lovely having a chat with you today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
That's okay. Awesome. It's been so nice having a chat.
Yeah.
Right, that marks the end of another great episode. We really hope you enjoyed tuning in today. And if you did, please share with your friends, rate us on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify, and watch the video version on YouTube. We've got so many exciting things coming, so we really love for you to get involved. See you soon.